I was washing dishes in my small apartment above the harbor when my sister's name flashed on my phone. Lila. We hadn't spoken in weeks, not since the last time she cried about being on the edge, and I sent her rent money I couldn't afford. Her voice trembled the second I answered. Emmy, they're raising my rent again. I'm going to lose my place. I need just a little help. Please. I stared out at the fishing boats below my window, the salt air mixing with the scent of burnt coffee. Lila, I already sent you money last month. You said you were starting that catering job. She sniffed. They let me go. Said I wasn't focused. I've just been not okay. Not okay. Her favorite phrase. The magic spell that made everyone else responsible for her choices. Before I could respond, another voice joined the call. Emily, sweetheart, it's Mom. Of course. I didn't even need to check to know Lila had added her. Mom's tone carried that heavy mix of concern and guilt. Your sister's struggling again, honey. You know how fragile she gets. We're worried. I felt that familiar heat rise behind my eyes. Mom, she's been fragile for 3 years. I can't keep. Don't be cruel, she cut in. You know you're the only one she trusts. The same line every time. I looked at the sink full of soap bubbles and whispered, I'll send what I can. By nightfall, $1,200 was gone from my account. I ate stale toast for dinner and told myself it was fine. The next morning, my phone buzzed again. Lila's text read, My therapist says I need something that helps me focus, a pet. Maybe a parrot. I laughed out loud, but it wasn't funny. Then she sent a photo of a bright blue parrot perched in a cage, price tag visible, $900. My hands trembled as I typed. Lila, please stop. I can't keep. Before I could finish, another text arrived. Mom says you're being heartless again. That word, heartless, landed like a blade. 2 weeks later, the parrot arrived. She named it Zeus, called it her emotional anchor, and posted pictures of it perched on her shoulder with captions about healing. For 3 whole days, things were quiet. Then she texted again. The vet says Zeus needs special imported seeds. $300 a bag. I didn't reply. I couldn't. But silence wasn't allowed in our family. That evening, my mother showed up unannounced, holding a casserole dish like a weapon of guilt. Emily, why are you punishing your sister? She's trying to heal. We can't all be as strong as you. I'm not strong, I said quietly. I'm tired. Mom ignored me, scanning my small apartment. You always did like playing the martyr. When she left, I sat on the couch in the dark, staring at my reflection in the black TV screen. I didn't recognize the person looking back. 3 days passed before I got the next call, this time from Dad. His voice was tight, controlled. You need to come to Lila's place. Now. My heart stopped. What happened? He hesitated. It's bad. The drive across town felt endless. Lila's apartment overlooked the sea, but the view couldn't hide the chaos. When I arrived, the door was open, and the living room was packed. Mom, Dad, 2 aunts, even Uncle Ray, who hadn't visited in years. They all turned when they saw me. Lila was on the couch, shaking and sobbing into her hands. You killed him, she screamed when she saw me. The room went silent. I blinked. What are you talking about? Zeus, she wailed. You killed Zeus. You poisoned his water. Mom gasped and covered her mouth. Dad's face went white. Emily, he whispered, tell me that's not true. I could only stare at the small covered cage in the corner, trembling from the draft. The smell of something strange, like freezer burn and flowers, hung in the air. My stomach turned. I stepped closer and pulled the cover away. Zeus sat perfectly still on his perch, eyes half open, feathers dull and stiff. I reached out. His body was cold. Too cold. Not just dead. Frozen. Lila's sobs grew louder. You did this because you're jealous, she cried. You've always hated me. But my mind was racing. Frozen meant time. Frozen meant deception. Something inside me clicked, sharp and certain. And in that moment, I realized. This wasn't grief. It was a setup. I stood frozen in that humid living room while everyone's voices blurred together, accusations, crying, the hum of the ceiling fan slicing through the air. My father's voice cut through the noise. Emily, tell us what happened. I don't even know what you're talking about, I said, forcing my voice to stay calm. When was the last time any of you saw Zeus alive? Lila wailed louder, rocking back and forth. He was fine this morning. I went for a walk, and when I came back, he was dead. You must have come here, snuck in, and… Enough, I said sharply. That's ridiculous. But the look on their faces told me the word ridiculous didn't matter anymore. They'd already chosen their roles in this play. Lila was the victim, and I was the villain. I moved toward the cage. The smell hit first, sweet, chemical, like freezer frost mixed with something metallic. I reached out, ignoring Mom's gasp. My fingers brushed the parrot's feathers. Ice. Real ice. He wasn't just dead. He'd been frozen solid, thawing under the apartment's warm air. Something in my chest snapped. I turned to Lila. How long has he been dead? Her face paled, just for a second, then she looked at Dad. You see? She's trying to twist it. That's what she does. Mom's eyes filled with tears. Emily, please stop. Don't make this uglier than it already is. I laughed, an awful, humorless sound. Make it uglier? Lila's lying, and you can't even see it. Everyone flinched. Even Dad, who rarely showed emotion, took a step back. And then I noticed something. By the sliding balcony door, a puddle. Small, round, glimmering in the light. The kind of puddle you'd see when something cold, something frozen, starts to melt. I crouched down, touching the tile. The water was frigid. That was when I knew. She'd staged this. I stood up, my voice low but steady. This bird's been dead for days. Maybe a week. Lila's face twisted. You're sick. How could you even say that? Because it's true. Look at him. I pointed at Zeus, whose feathers now drooped like wet paper. He's thawing. A murmur rippled through the room. Aunt Susan whispered something to my father, who frowned. Lila's lips trembled. Stop trying to ruin me. I met her eyes. No. I'm done letting you ruin me. Silence swallowed the room. Then, as if to seal her performance, Lila collapsed to the floor in sobs. Mom rushed forward, wrapping her arms around her like a child. It's okay, baby, she murmured. We'll take care of everything. Dad exhaled slowly. Emily, maybe you should go. Go. Of course. That was always the solution. Sweep the mess under the rug and blame me for the stain. I took one last look at the frozen bird, at the puddle spreading wider across the tile, and walked out. Outside, the salt air hit my face. I sat in my car for what felt like hours, gripping the steering wheel, my mind replaying every manipulation, every guilt trip, every "I'm not okay." And suddenly, I remembered something from 2 weeks ago, when Lila had bragged about getting pet insurance for Zeus because he was so rare. My stomach dropped. This wasn't about grief. It was about money. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing the parrot's frozen body in the cage, the way Lila had screamed, "You killed him," with perfect timing, how everyone had been there, like it was all arranged. The next morning, I decided I needed proof. I drove to her apartment building again. She wasn't answering her phone, and I didn't care. The spare key was still under the chipped flower pot, same place it had always been. Inside, the air was damp and heavy. The cage was gone. The balcony door still had water stains. And when I opened the freezer, there he was. A small patch of feathers stuck to the ice tray. I stared at it for a long time, numb, until I noticed something else. A half-empty bottle of tranquilizer drops labeled "For birds, use with caution." The price sticker was still on it, $1.20. And beside it, an envelope. Inside were printed papers, emails, receipts, and a policy certificate. Pet insurance claim, emotional support animal, Zeus Parker. Filed 2 days ago. My chest tightened. She hadn't even waited. As I stood there holding the papers, I heard footsteps in the hallway. The doorknob rattled. I shoved the documents back into the freezer, stepped behind the kitchen counter, and held my breath. The door opened. Lila walked in, humming softly, carrying grocery bags. When she saw me, she froze, then smiled. Too quickly. Emmy, what are you doing here? I could ask you the same thing, I said, my voice like ice. Her smile flickered. I was just getting food. For Zeus? I asked. The grocery bags slipped from her hands. And in that moment, I saw it all over her face. Guilt, panic, calculation. I wasn't crazy. She'd frozen the truth, and I just cracked it open. Lila stared at me like a trapped animal. Her fingers twitched at her sides, nails chipped, mascara smudged. "What did you do, Emily?" she whispered. I took a slow step forward. "You filed an insurance claim for a bird you already killed." She flinched, then tried to laugh. "That's insane. You really think I'd—" "Don't lie to me." My voice was steady, but inside, my pulse thundered. "I saw the freezer, Lila. The bottle of tranquilizers. The policy papers." Her eyes darted to the kitchen counter, where the grocery bags lay spilled across the floor, and I could almost see the wheels turning in her head. "You shouldn't have come here," she said softly. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The hum of the fridge filled the silence like static. Then she said, "I told Mom everything. She believes me. She thinks you're having another episode." The words hit like a slap. "Another what?" Lila tilted her head, watching me with that cruel, careful smile I'd known since childhood. "You don't remember? When you threw that glass at Dad during college, you said you didn't mean to, but—" "That was 12 years ago," I snapped. "And it shattered because you grabbed my arm while I was cooking." But the moment she said it, I knew what she was doing. Rewriting history. Planting doubt before I could expose her. I took a deep breath. "You're trying to make me look unstable again." Her smile widened. "It's not hard." That was when I realized how far she'd planned this. Not just the fake death. The setup. The family witnesses. The manipulation. She wanted to destroy my credibility before I even had a chance to speak. I turned and left without another word. By the time I got home, my phone was lighting up. A string of texts from Mom. "Emily, your sister says you broke into her apartment. What's wrong with you? You need help." I stared at the screen, shaking. She'd turned them all against me. Again. That night, I couldn't eat. Couldn't think. Just replayed the scene over and over, Lila's fake innocence, that frozen bird, her twisting of the past. By morning, I knew what I had to do. If the truth wouldn't speak for itself, I'd make it scream. At 4 p.m., I showed up at my parents' house unannounced. The family was there, Mom, Dad, Aunt Ruth, and, of course, Lila, sitting on the couch with a blanket draped dramatically over her shoulders like some fragile victim from a soap opera. Mom's face hardened the second she saw me. "Emily, not today." I ignored her and dropped a folder on the coffee table. "You're going to listen." Lila shifted uncomfortably. "What is this?" "Proof." I opened the folder and pulled out the printed insurance policy I'd photographed before leaving her apartment. The claim date glared up from the page 2 days before Zeus's supposed death. Dad leaned forward. His expression flickered from confusion to anger. "Lila, what is this?" She went pale. "That's not mine." "Emily's making things up again, she." I slid my phone across the table. "There's more. Photos of the freezer. Of Zeus still frozen. Of the tranquilizer bottle." Silence. Aunt Ruth reached for the phone, scrolling through the images with her thin fingers. The longer she looked, the darker her face grew. Dad's jaw clenched. "Lila." Lila's voice trembled. "You don't understand." I panicked. I didn't know what to do after he died. After he died? I cut in. "Or after you realized you could profit from it?" Mom shot to her feet. "Enough. You're both tearing this family apart." I turned to her, my voice shaking but clear. "No, Mom. She tore it apart years ago. I've just been trying to tape the pieces back together." For once, Dad didn't intervene. He just stared at Lila with something like disbelief, or maybe recognition. She began to cry. Perfect, cinematic tears. "I just wanted to start over," she sobbed. "I didn't mean for it to go this far." Mom knelt beside her. "Honey, it's okay. We'll figure this out." "Figure out what?" I demanded. "Fraud? Manipulation?" "She accused me of murder, Mom. She made me the villain in front of everyone." Mom's head snapped toward me. "Because you make everything about you." The room went still. Aunt Ruth spoke quietly, but every word cut deep. "Maybe it's about time someone did make it about Emily." Dad rubbed his temples, his voice low. Lila, we need the truth. All of it. For a moment, her face went blank like she was calculating. Then, in a whisper, she said, I needed the money. The insurance payout. I thought I could pay her back later. The words hung in the air like a confession carved in stone. Dad stood up slowly. Get your things. We're going to the insurance office right now. Lila froze. What? No, Dad, please. But he wasn't listening anymore. For the first time in years, his anger wasn't aimed at me. And as I followed them to the door, something inside me loosened. It wasn't a victory yet, but it was the first crack in her perfect mask. And I was going to shatter it completely. The drive to the insurance office was silent. Lila sat in the back seat beside me, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles turned white. Mom rode in the front, whispering prayers under her breath. Dad's jaw was locked, his eyes fixed on the road like if he blinked, everything would explode. We pulled into a bland concrete building near the waterfront, gray walls, glass doors, the kind of place where hope went to die under fluorescent lights. Inside, a woman with silver hair and steady eyes greeted us. Her nameplate read, Ms. Duval, Claims Investigator. She looked at each of us like she'd seen families like ours 100 times before. Please, she said, motioning toward a conference room. Let's sit. We did. The air smelled faintly of coffee and copier toner. Lila sat with her arms crossed, mascara smudged like battle paint. I sat across from her, heart pounding. Ms. Duval opened a folder. Miss Parker, she began, glancing at Lila. You filed a claim for an emotional support animal named Zeus. The policy states he died on October 12th due to poisoning. Is that correct? Lila's voice was fragile. Yes. And the policy was purchased on September 30th? She nodded again. Ms. Duval adjusted her glasses. Do you have a veterinary report confirming the cause of death? Lila hesitated. Not yet. I haven't had the chance. Dad leaned forward. She froze the bird, Ms. Duval. Lila gasped. Dad. He didn't stop. She accused her sister of killing it, called the whole family over, made a scene. Then Emily found the bird's body frozen solid days later. The investigator's pen paused mid-note. Her eyes flicked toward me. Is that true, Miss Parker? Yes, I said quietly. He was ice-cold. And she'd already filed the claim before that day. Ms. Duval looked at Lila again. Do you have any explanation for that timeline? Lila's breathing quickened. It was a mistake. I panicked after he died. I didn't know how to report it. You froze the animal, Miss Parker, the investigator said calmly. That's not a mistake. That's tampering. Mom shifted in her seat. Please, she said softly. My daughter has mental health struggles. Ms. Duval didn't even blink. Mental health struggles don't generate insurance fraud, ma'am. Intent does. The words landed heavy. For the first time, Lila's facade cracked completely. Tears spilled down her cheeks, smearing what was left of her eyeliner. I wasn't trying to hurt anyone, she whispered. I thought if I could get that money, I could fix everything. I'd pay my debts, pay Emily back, start over. I clenched my hands under the table. You ruined me, Lila. You made me look like a monster in front of everyone. She looked up, eyes red. You always had everything, Em. The job, the stability, the approval. I just wanted to matter. The room fell silent. Ms. Duval closed her folder. We'll need to take custody of the animal's remains to confirm time of death. You should be aware that attempting to file a fraudulent claim is a serious offense. Lila's face went sheet white. You mean jail? Possibly, Ms. Duval said. Depending on the findings. Mom grabbed her hand. Please, there must be another way. The investigator's tone was gentle, but unyielding. There's always another way before the lie begins. Dad exhaled slowly. We'll cooperate fully. When we left the building, the sunlight felt too bright, too sharp. Lila kept her head down, sobbing quietly. Mom hovered beside her, whispering comfort that sounded like denial. I followed a few paces behind, every step heavy. Halfway to the car, Lila turned suddenly. You think you've won, don't you? She hissed. You've been waiting for this, me to fall apart so you could feel superior. I stared at her, exhausted. No, Lila. I've been waiting for you to stop taking everyone down with you. Her eyes burned with something dark: shame, fury, fear. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. You don't get it, do you? Zeus wasn't even the first. I froze. What do you mean? But she turned away, wiping her face. Forget it. Dad barked. Lila, what did you just say? Nothing, she muttered. It doesn't matter. But it did. The way she said it, the flicker in her eyes, told me she'd done something like this before. And suddenly, a thought I didn't want to believe crept in. How many other emergencies had there been? How many times had she cried, begged, and taken advantage of people's pity, not just me, but others too? That night, I couldn't sleep again. My mind kept replaying her words. Zeus wasn't even the first. The next morning, I opened my laptop and started searching through public records, social posts, anything tied to her name. Within 15 minutes, I found something that made my heart stop. A year earlier, a man named Victor Hale had posted online about being scammed by his ex-girlfriend for nearly $10,000. The photos he'd attached were of Lila. Different name. Same smile. And I knew right then. Zeus was just the tip of something much darker. I found Victor Hale's post buried under months of forgotten threads on a local community forum. His words were angry but careful, like someone still trying to process betrayal. My ex took me for almost 10 grand, he'd written. Fake emergencies, emotional breakdowns, hospital bills that never existed. I didn't even want revenge, I just wanted to warn others. She's smart, convincing, and she'll cry on cue if you doubt her. Below the post was a single grainy photo. Victor and Lila at a cafe, arms around each other, both smiling. Her hair was darker, her name in the caption was Lena Porter, but it was her. I hesitated for almost an hour before sending him a message. Hi, Victor. I think I know the woman you're talking about. She's my sister. He replied less than 10 minutes later. Meet me tomorrow. 11 a.m. Pier 6 Cafe. The next morning, the sky was gray, the sea restless. The cafe was nearly empty when I walked in, the smell of salt and coffee hanging in the air. Victor was easy to spot, tall, tired, and wearing the kind of expression that said he'd been through too many disappointments. He looked up when I approached. You must be Emily. I nodded and sat down. You're sure the woman you dated was Lila Parker? He gave a hollow laugh. She said her name was Lena Porter. But yeah, same face. Same little tremble in her voice when she's about to ask for money. I felt both vindicated and sick. How long did you date? A year and a half, he said. I thought she was perfect, sensitive, artistic, misunderstood. She told me she had panic attacks so bad she couldn't work. So I covered her rent, her meds, her therapy. Turns out the therapist she mentioned was just a name she made up. My stomach twisted. Did she ever talk about animals? He nodded slowly. Yeah, she had a dog named Jasper. Said he died suddenly after eating bad food. She cried for days. Then she told me her therapist suggested she get insurance next time for closure. I didn't realize what that meant until now. Did she file a claim? She tried, he said, bitterly. The company flagged it for inconsistencies. She said it was a misunderstanding, then disappeared a week later. Changed her number. Blocked me on everything. I leaned back stunned. It was a pattern. A system. Lila's mental health wasn't a weakness, it was her weapon. Victor looked at me carefully. I saw what she did to you online. That post your aunt made about the parrot thing. You threw it off the balcony, right? The words made me flinch. That's not what happened. He raised a hand. I know. She did the same thing to me, twisted the story. Told people I'd been abusive, controlling, obsessed. It's what she does when she's cornered. I exhaled shakily. She almost convinced my parents I was dangerous. That's her power, he said quietly. She makes you doubt your own memory. Makes everyone else her audience. We sat in silence for a moment. The waves outside slammed against the pier, the sound steady and merciless. Then Victor leaned forward. I still have screenshots of her messages, receipts, everything. If this case goes to court, I'll testify. I blinked. You'd do that. He shrugged. If it helps you, yeah. And maybe it stops her from doing it again. He pulled out his phone and scrolled through messages, showing me threads of familiar patterns: fake emergencies, hospital visits, car repairs, rent crises. Word for word, the same language she'd used on me. Each lie was identical, like she'd been working from a script. My throat tightened. How did you finally stop believing her? He smiled sadly. When I realized every time I saved her, I lost more of myself. The words hit too close to home. Before we left, I gave him my number and thanked him. The insurance company might contact you, I said. They're investigating her. He nodded. Good. Just be careful, Emily. When people like her lose control, they don't go quietly. That night, I sat on Aunt Ruth's couch, my laptop glowing in the dark. I forwarded Victor's screenshots to Ms. Duval, attaching a note. He's willing to testify. There are multiple victims. Then I stared at the message before hitting send, wondering how much more truth my family could handle. Because one thing was clear now: Lila wasn't spiraling. She was orchestrating. And I wasn't her only casualty. 2 days after I sent Ms. Duval Victor's evidence, she called me back. Her voice was calm, almost too calm. Ms. Parker, she said, we've confirmed a pattern of fraudulent claims connected to your sister's name and aliases. Our legal team has already contacted the district attorney's office. There will be formal charges. My mouth went dry. Charges? As in, prison. Yes, she said evenly. But you should know something else. One of the other victims came forward this morning, a woman who says your sister borrowed money under false pretenses. The case is growing. I swallowed hard. Thank you. After I hung up, I sat perfectly still, the phone heavy in my hand. It was finally happening. But instead of relief, all I felt was grief, thick and cold, like mourning a person who hadn't died yet, but soon would. That evening, I went to my parents' house. They were sitting in the living room, the news blaring softly from the TV, but neither was watching. Mom's eyes were swollen from crying. She called me, she said before I even sat down. Your sister. She's hysterical. Says she's being framed. I looked at Dad. He stared at the floor. We got a visit from a detective today, he said quietly. They had questions about the insurance claim, about our involvement. I sank into the chair opposite them. You told them the truth? He nodded. I did. Your mother. I didn't know it was fraud, Mom interrupted. I thought she was struggling. I thought she needed help. You thought wrong, I said, harsher than I meant to. She flinched. Don't talk to me like that. Then stop treating me like I'm the villain, I snapped. I didn't ruin this family, Mom. I just stopped pretending everything was fine. The silence that followed was brutal. Even the TV seemed to hold its breath. Finally, Dad said, the investigator asked us not to contact Lila until the case moves forward. They want everything documented. Mom's face crumpled. She's still my daughter. And I'm still yours, I said quietly. But that never seemed to matter when she was crying. Mom's lower lip trembled. I was trying to keep her alive. I looked her straight in the eye. No. You were keeping her comfortable while she destroyed everyone else. Dad stood, pacing. Enough. We can't keep doing this. He turned to me. I told the detective I'd cooperate fully. Whatever they need. It's time this stops. That was the first time I'd ever heard him take my side, and it broke something open inside me. For the first time in years, I felt seen. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. When I answered, Lila's voice came through, weak, shaky. Emmy, she whispered. Please. They're going to arrest me. You have to fix this. I froze. Fix it? You destroyed everything, Lila. You lied to everyone. You tried to ruin me. She started crying. I didn't mean to. You don't understand. I was desperate. Desperate people ask for help, I said. They don't fake deaths for insurance money. You think you're so perfect, she shouted suddenly. You always had control, everything I never did. I just wanted to matter for once. Her words cracked, dissolving into sobs. And for a second, I almost felt sorry for her, the little girl version of my sister who used to braid my hair and cry over broken toys. But that version of her was long gone. I can't help you, I said finally. You need to face what you've done. Please, Emmy. You're all I have left. I was all you had, I said softly, and hung up. That evening, the detective called to confirm Lila had turned herself in. I sat on Aunt Ruth's porch, watching the sun sink over the water. The air was still, heavy with salt and silence. Aunt Ruth stepped outside with 2 mugs of tea and handed me one. You did what you had to, she said simply. I didn't want it to end like this, I murmured. It never ends clean when love and guilt share the same room, she said. But you finally walked out of that room, and that's something. I nodded, staring into the tea, watching the steam rise like ghosts leaving the body. Somewhere out there, my sister was sitting in a cell, crying her perfect tears for an audience that wouldn't buy tickets this time. And for the first time, I didn't feel responsible for them. Just free. That night, I dreamed of Zeus, the blue parrot, feathers whole again, flying above the harbor. He circled once, twice, and vanished into the sun. When I woke, I realized it wasn't about the bird anymore. It never was. It was about every frozen thing Lila had touched: love, trust, family, thawing at last, even if it left a mess behind. And maybe that was what healing really looked like. 3 months passed before the trial. The world didn't stop spinning, but for a while, it felt like mine did. Every week brought another document, another email from the district attorney's office, another reminder that my sister wasn't just a problem anymore, she was a case number. Lila Parker, charged with insurance fraud, falsification of evidence, and attempted defamation. Each word looked sharp enough to cut. Mom didn't take it well. She refused to attend the hearings. I can't watch my daughter in handcuffs, she said, her voice distant and brittle. Dad went. Every time. He said it was his responsibility, not to defend her, but to see the truth through to the end. He started therapy after that. Mom, reluctantly, joined him. As for me, I moved into a new apartment near the harbor. No roaches, no mildew. Just silence and sunlight and space that was finally mine. On the morning of the sentencing, I stood outside the courthouse with Aunt Ruth. The air smelled faintly of rain and seaweed. Are you sure you want to go in? She asked. I nodded. I need to hear it. Inside, the courtroom felt smaller than I expected. The walls were beige, the chairs stiff, the lighting unforgiving. Lila sat at the defense table, her hair pulled back, her face pale without the mask of makeup. She looked older, smaller, like the weight of her own lies had finally crushed the performance. When the judge entered, everyone rose. The proceedings were quick, sterile, procedural. The prosecutor read the charges, the investigator's report, the evidence chain that connected each fraud to her. The name Victor Hale came up, and I felt my throat tighten. When it was her turn to speak, Lila stood, clutching a crumpled piece of paper. I'm sorry, she began, her voice shaking. To everyone I hurt, especially my sister. I wasn't trying to destroy anyone. I just didn't know who I was without someone saving me. She paused, and for a moment, I almost believed her. But then I saw the familiar flicker in her eyes, that desperate, performative need for sympathy. The judge sentenced her to 2 years of probation, community service, and mandatory therapy. A suspended sentence, no jail, but no more lies either. When it was over, she turned in her seat to look at me. Our eyes met. There was no apology in hers. No hatred either. Just emptiness. And that emptiness was louder than any scream. Outside the courthouse, the wind picked up. Dad came out a few minutes later, shoulders sagging under invisible weight. She'll be living with a court-appointed supervisor for a while, he said quietly. They'll help her get a job, make her pay restitution. Maybe. He trailed off, unable to finish. Maybe she'll finally have to grow up, I said. He nodded, looking out toward the gray sky. I'm proud of you, Emily, for not giving up on the truth. Even when we did. That made me cry, not loud, ugly tears, but quiet ones, the kind that sneak up after years of holding them back. Aunt Ruth put her hand on my shoulder. You did what love couldn't, she whispered. You drew the line. 2 weeks later, I got a letter. It was from Lila. The handwriting was shaky but familiar. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even know what that means anymore. I just wanted you to know that I see it now, all the things I did, all the ways I blamed you for the holes I dug myself. You were never the villain, Emily. You were just the only one strong enough to stop me. I folded the letter carefully and slid it into the back of my journal. Not out of sentiment, but because I needed a record of it. A reminder of where the line had been drawn and what it cost to hold it. Life moved quietly after that. I started seeing a therapist every Thursday. I learned how to stop apologizing for saying no. I learned how to cook without guilt, how to spend money on things I wanted instead of things I owed. Sometimes, I still wake up thinking I hear my phone buzzing, the phantom memory of Lila's endless emergencies. But the silence that follows is soft, not empty. One evening, as the sun dipped below the water, I sat on my balcony watching the gulls circle the harbor. For the first time, I didn't think about what I'd lost. I thought about what I'd kept. My peace. My boundaries. Myself. When I finally went inside, I passed the small mirror by the door, the one that used to hang in my childhood home. The glass had a faint crack running down the middle, but it still reflected clearly enough. I caught my own reflection, smiled faintly, and whispered to it. "You're not broken. You're just done pretending." The mirror didn't answer. It didn't have to, because for the first time in my life, I believed it.